want.
Welcome to the June 16th City Council meeting. I am Jim Nash. I am the City Council President, and I will be presiding for just about all of this meeting. I'll be recusing myself at one point. I want to let everyone know that this meeting and all participating on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. I now call the City Council to order. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Councillor Elkins.
Present.
Councillor Foster.
Here.
Councillor Gore.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Labarge.
Here.
Councillor Maori. Not yet present, and we understand she will be joining shortly. Councillor Moulton.
Here.
Councillor Nash.
Here.
And Councillor Perry.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Okay, now that we are convened, we first need to hold a public hearing, and then we will take public comment. Our public hearing is on a poll petition. Let's read this here. Public hearing on item 22.081, National Grid Verizon New England poll petition for one jointly owned pole on Clark Street. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, the Northampton City Council will hold a public meeting on Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 7 p.m. on National Grid Verizon New England's petition to install one jointly owned pole on Clark Street. The City Council will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. So could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Foster, and I'm going to guess it was Councillor Moulton with that second. There's no discussion on this, is there? Roll call, Laura.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Councillor Gore.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
And Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing on the poll petition is now open, and I believe we have a representative from Verizon here to speak to this. Laura, can you help us find him? Oh, there he is, Donald.
Sorry, I couldn't mute myself. I muted myself when you guys were doing a roll call. I didn't want to like move any papers or.
Oh, that's fine. Welcome, Donald. And we're sorry about the mix-up a few weeks back.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So welcome, and would you like to speak to this?
I could just go over real quick. I don't have any questions, but pretty much we are trying to do some work on the water pump station, and there was a pole in front of an abutter's house for pole 5 we had to support. Originally we were going to put an anchor in front of this person's property. He was heavily against that that proposition, so the only solution was to add a mid-span pole that would be at the edge of his property. So this newly installed mid-span pole with the anchor would be in between these two abutters' properties, not in the way of anyone's house, and it would be in line to avoid having to put an anchor directly on pole 5, because it was an issue originally to put an anchor in front of this gentleman's house, and he was heavily against it. So the solution was to add a new mid-span pole that would be in line of pole 5, without keeping it straight and not having to have an anchor in front of his house.
Okay. Thank you. And that is that property owner here as part of the hearing tonight? Donald, do you know who that person is? Maybe
I don't know if he's here tonight, but I spoken with Stephen Ariston. That is the gentleman that owns property where our pole 5 is at. He's okay with it. I spoke with the next door neighbor as well. It's pole, like house 22. So house 42 is pole 5 where we were going to originally set the anchor on. That's Stephen Ariston. House 22 is the neighbor. He doesn't have an issue either. I've included all the butters that were near this newly set pole, 2735. I don't know if they're here as well, but yeah, that's all I got for in terms of a butters list. Try to notify.
Sounds pretty thorough. Are there any, so if there's anybody here who'd like to speak to this matter, I suppose you can be a proponent and opponent at this point. And if by raising your virtual hand, which is down under reactions, I am not seeing any hands raised here. Okay, well, thank you, Donald. We've heard what we've heard. I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Sounds good.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by, I think, Councilor Foster. Roll call, please, Laura, to close the public hearing.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
and Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing on item 22.081 has been closed, and that item is part of our consent agenda, which will be coming up a little later in our meeting. Next up on the agenda is public comment. And where is my... Okay. If you wish to make a public comment, please use the raised hand feature. The raised hand feature is in the bottom menu bar under reactions. If you are calling by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you are having trouble raising your hand, you may use the chat feature to send a message to me or Counselor Foster, who's helping me manage this, to ensure equal access. And because of the open meeting law, technical problems such as not being able to raise your hand are the only things that the chat function is used for, and the chat function will only be available during public comment. We cannot accept comment over chat, private chat, or chat only visible on Zoom during a public meeting is antithetical to an open public process, in violation of the council rules for public participation, and violates the spirit and potentially the law of open meeting law. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov, and it will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. I will unmute each raised hand in the order raised and make a comment. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. To ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to 2 minutes. You are in no way obligated to use the full 2 minutes, but if you do, after 2 minutes, I will ask you to please finish your sentence. Tonight, we will also be using our timer, which will appear in the Zoom gallery. According to the council rules, we do not respond during public comment, as it is your time to speak. So while your comments should be directed to us, You will understand when we do not respond. Our rules also state that counselors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. Your protected speech is a constitutional right and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect for all, and with recognition that the public space that grants you the freedom is equally shared by everyone. Also, according to open meeting law, if someone is disrupting a meeting, they may be removed. You may speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an agenda item. I ask that all but the council turn off your video until called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor, and all comments are to be directed to the council. The meeting can also be watched on Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton Open Media's YouTube and other platforms. Okay, first up is Amy Carlin. Welcome, Amy. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Amy Carlin of Florence, Massachusetts. I'm speaking in support of the ordinance extending the effective date of section 272-18, which is the Environmental Protection and Solid Waste Reduction Ordinance, to October 31st of this year. I wanted to share a few very brief comments on the current restaurant landscape. The restaurant community continues to struggle from the ongoing impacts of COVID and the current economic challenges facing the country. These impacts are playing out here in Northampton and beyond in a multitude of ways, many of which you've probably seen. Staffing shortages are resulting in limited open hours and therefore reduced restaurant income and higher payroll costs. Many restaurants are raising salaries to attract new staff and retain old. Credit card fees are also taking an increasingly large portion of restaurant income. Takeout business is busy, which is great, but monthly credit card fees for some downtown restaurants are higher than their monthly rent. The cost of goods is up across the board, proteins and other ingredients, as well as behind the scene items like fry oil, gloves, and paper products. Prices on everything are skyrocketing. And supply chain problems continue to create shortages on any number of packaging products, resulting in higher costs and significantly more time spent trying to source products and ingredients. And in the worst case scenario, we're seeing restaurants close, most recently Sylvester's, hardly a brand new restaurant on the landscape. There's a collective desire amongst the restaurant community to make their businesses as green as possible. Many have made significant strides in this direction, but there's very little wiggle room in the current economic climate. Allowing for these additional few months to work with the DPW and the mayor's office to adapt some of the language to allow for flexibility while keeping to a timeline and respecting the end goals of the ordinance feels very appropriate at this time. I'm grateful to Councilor Maori and the mayor's office for being willing to work with the restaurant community to make this ordinance a partnership and not punitive. And I'd ask that the council support the proposed ordinance extending the implementation date to October 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next up is Christopher Niebor. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so Christopher Niebor, I'm the son of Rose and Fred Niebor at 29 Winter Street. I was involved in a initial meeting several months ago with regards to the taking of the end of Winter Street. Since that point, nobody's communicated with me or my brother or our attorney or my parents regarding the previous meeting where action was started and is going to be completed tonight. I'd also like to let the council know that a design review by a local engineering consulting firm was completed and submitted today by our attorney to the city attorney. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Christopher. Okay, next up is Darcy Sweeney.
Hi, my name's Darcy Sweeney. I live in Florence. I'd like to speak tonight about the city's failure to restrict developers from buying older, relatively affordable houses and then demolishing them to build much bigger, more expensive houses in their place. In my Bay State neighborhood, New Way Homes has knocked down 2 houses as well as several garages, and a small house on William Street in Northampton, bought by a different developer, is slated to be knocked down at any time. What is happening across the city is completely out of line with goals outlined in the Sustainable Northampton Plan that's related to conservation of resources. I'd like to read a couple of excerpts from the plan. On page 2, it says the city needs sustainable practices that reduce consumption of resources and improve our impact on the environment. On page 30, it says the city should recognize that the first steps in carbon neutralization are conservation and reducing demands, e.g. energy, transport, materials. And on page 45, it says that solid waste disposal is an important area to address. The actions we take to reduce the amount of material sent to the landfill can have other benefits, like reducing our material consumption and the energy use associated with the production, packaging, and transportation of products. Obviously, there's a big disconnect between the goals of the Sustainable Northampton Plan and what's actually happening in our neighborhoods. Standing by while developers reduce older rehabable houses to rubble and then haul the debris to a landfill simply doesn't conform with the plan's goals of reducing the city's carbon footprint by reducing waste and consumption of resources. Obviously, it will take an enormous amount of resources to build the bigger, fancier houses that are replacing the modest ones that were demolished. The development that is going on in the city is clearly out of alignment with the Sustainable Northampton Plan, and this needs to be remedied. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Next up is Catherine Basham.
Oh, good evening. Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I'm Catherine Basham and I live on 24 Winter Street. And I'm responding to the order that will be proposed tonight, the 22.076, the order to authorize acquisition of Winter Street easements. My role had been on the previous meetings, and I'm one of the residents of the street who had suffered some of the most severe damage. There are others as well, but both in 2006 and 2019, there was severe water main breaks, and they were directly related to deteriorating infrastructure of the pipes in the street. And it's been determined that they are desperately in need of a replacement and infrastructure change. And essentially, the majority of the residents on Winter Street at this point, we've polled residents, the majority are in support of moving forward with this project as quickly as possible. DPW has been involved and have been writing collective letters to the mayor, to the council, and appreciate all of your responsiveness to these initiatives. So we can clearly demonstrate that the majority are in support of moving forward with the easement. And essentially, the worry is this type of event could happen anytime again, and it could be worse than it has been. But the last damage for me amounted to $40,000 worth of damage to my home, the entire structure of the basement and the garage and the surrounding yard. So it gives you a glimpse of what we're dealing with. So I will stop there and look forward to working cooperatively as best as possible with all the key players. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Welcome.
Okay, next up is Sarah.
Yes, we are Sarah and William Friedberg. We are the next door neighbors to Catherine Basham. We live at 18 Winter Street in Northampton. We also are in support of the 22.076 order on the acquisition of easements for drainage in our street. We also suffered from the flooding which occurred in both 2006 and 2019. Not as severe as Catherine's, but we both times we had significant property damage to our property. And we also confirm with what Catherine said, that we have contacted the majority of the other residents on the street who are also in support of getting this work done this summer. We've been waiting for 3 years for it to get done, and we are very anxious to have it completed this year. And so we look forward to having that done as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Jay Ryan.
Yes, my name is John Ryan. I live on 21 Winter Street, across the street from the Friedbergs and Catherine. And no need to go over what they have already. The concern is the length of time that this has gone on. And what I received from our councilman, I thought that things were looking up. I know that the question regarding the ownership of that land at the end of Winter Street did hold up the process, but it was my understanding from Stan's letter that that issue had been resolved, and hopefully that it has. But listening to Christopher, it kind of sounds like nobody has been in touch with them. So I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I just would like to see the process moved along. As Sarah said, it's been 3 years. We're kind of just waiting for the next shoe to fall. And hopefully this could be resolved so that the construction could start this summer, hopefully, and not put us through another winter waiting for the next break to happen. That's, really my concern, is just that we move this along as quickly as we possibly can. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. All right, next up is Bill Dwight.
Hello. Yes, Bill Dwight, City of Northampton, although right now I'm in Vermont. So, you'll see that my name shows up on the agenda here later. I'm not sure what you guys need from me, but I would like to make myself available to you guys if needed for further discussion. But I'm actually here to speak to the puffin on your screen and acknowledge that puffin's contribution to the city of Northampton, and as we understand the city of Northampton and how we perceive it. I'm speaking, of course, of Wayne Fiden. Wayne is transitioning, as they say, moving on. And as you all know, when I first got elected, Wayne was coming up as the planning director. And Wayne introduced me to aspects of Northampton that I always took for granted. It's sort of things that I felt that evolved organically through our own combined wisdom. But point in fact, actually, it was Wayne's vision and his guidance that actually provides for us the community that we cherish, that we fight over, that we brag about. And you can see his mark everywhere, his delicate mark, his gentle hand, as it were. And I think I just want to lament the fact that he will be moving on. And I just want to say thank you very much, Wayne, or Puffin, whatever. I really do very much appreciate the time you've donated to this community, and by extension, me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dwight. Bill Dwight. Oops. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for public comment? I see Claudia's hand raised. Welcome, Claudia.
I had my hand up, but it keeps disappearing.
Well,
Claudia Lefko.
you have the floor and you have 2 minutes, Claudia.
40 Valley Street, Claudia Lefko. I'm here to speak about my frustration with the city bureaucracy, especially the bureaucracy in City Hall. A few weeks ago, a number of people, 15 from across the city, sent a letter to Mayor Sierra asking for a meeting with her. And we didn't hear anything back for 2 weeks. And then finally, we got a letter after some phone calls from Alan Wolf, restating the mayor's position on the topic which we were writing her about, which is infill and zoning issues in the city. So this isn't a city council issue. You'll say to me, but we don't have any control over this. But I like to think of city government as a team effort where everybody is pulling in the same direction. So we need the city council, we need the planning board, we need citizens particularly working together to make the city go smoothly. While we waited for the letter, for the meeting, for a response to the letter about the meeting, a house came down in Bay State and some trees. We're waiting here at 107 William Street. They're all set to take down a house and some trees here. This is an emergency situation, yet there's a complete lack of urgency, I think, coming from the city. So I'm here to say that we need some creative thinking here. We need City Hall, we need the mayor to open her door, and we need city councilors to actually see if you can help us with this. We need some facilitation. There is an opening with Wayne Fiden leaving, and I'm hoping, and I'm here to say, I hope the city council will urge the mayor to form a committee, including community members, who will look at what's happening in the planning department and try to make a plan for who we're looking for going forward. Because Wayne has had a good run, but I think we have some serious issues here, and I'd like to see a change of direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Before I go forward, Christopher, you get one shot at public comment, so you don't get another chance. Or maybe you raised your hand by accident. I'm not sure. Next up is Alan Wolf. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. You have the floor.
Bill inspired me. I just, given that this is his last city council meeting, I too would like to thank Wayne Fiden for his exemplary service to the city of Northampton. And for me personally, I have learned very much from having him just in the office next door to answer my many, many questions in my relatively short career with the city of Northampton. I will miss him terribly, and the city is incredibly grateful for all the work he has done. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is G.
Go ahead.
Hi, Richard Ebor speaking. I just want to make it clear that this easement is going to take my parents' only parking area, which they've used for 58 years continuously. And, you know, what's proposed with 4-inch gravel and, you know, utilizing the entire parcel for drainage is going to prevent them from parking on that space. And they have no other area to park on that property. And I just think the process, the way it's happened, and the design with what is put forward is definitely not what could be, you know, done in a much better way so that they could retain their parking. You know, perhaps some sort of pipe underground that would go into a retention pond, you know, something along those lines. I just, I feel that during construction, where do you expect them to park? They have no parking on that parcel. That is their parking area. And we've submitted a design review from an engineer that proposes alternatives to the plan currently being proposed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay. Somebody might raise their hand while I'm looking for the agenda here. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any more hands. We've completed public comment, and now we are into announcements from counselors and the mayor. Counselors, any announcements? Really? Oh, the hands went up. Okay, so let's go with Counselor Jarrett and then Counselor Foster. Oh, and then I saw Counselor Elkins too. Okay.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to speak about Director Fiden's retirement. So a few weeks before I heard the news about his retirement, it crossed my mind that, what are we going to do when Wayne retires? Who is going to lead the charge for the climate and rail trails and open space and sustainable development, and who's going to find those grants? And I was honestly worried about it. And then I saw the news and my first thought was, no, we're not ready. So I've, let's see, I lived in Northampton for 24 years now. And I've seen so many positive changes that this planning office has helped move along. So open space, affordable housing, the rail trails, the on-street cycling and walking infrastructure, picture Main Street, all the work in Florence, and all of these have meant so much to me personally, and I see the benefits that radiate outward. So just wanted to say thank you, and I wish you weren't leaving quite so soon.
Thank you, Counselor Jarrett. All right, who did I say was next? Counselor Foster.
I just wanted to echo what a lengthy string of people offering gratitude to Director Fiden, and similarly, I mean, for years, like even before I served on council, I would sometimes just marvel at the work in Northampton. The bike path, the open space, trails, all of those things that improve our quality of life, help us meet our climate goals, bring our city together. And I've just sort of always marveled at how that kind of work just leaves such a impression on a community and such a lasting impact. And, and as a counselor, I've just always been so grateful to Director Fiden for responses and proactiveness and helping me understand some of the finer points of the things that we're addressing. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know him as a counselor, and I'm so grateful for all of the work in our city, and leaving quite a legacy. So thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Counselor Foster. Counselor Elkins.
And I would be remiss to not add to these comments. And of course, I came to City Council by way of the Planning Board. And so by osmosis and hours-long meetings and beautifully presented presentations by the City Planning Department, explaining and showing us what the zoning legislation and the city planning goals and the sustainability plan, so many of our big picture things that go through the planning department that Wayne has played such a big role in and shown such leadership in. I just feel like I just learned, I earned a little mini city planning degree in my few years on the planning board and in that role. And so I also would just echo that just as I'm getting in here and getting to play more of a role and to play in the sandbox, I hate to see Wayne go right now, because this is a wonderful city sandbox to play in, and it is in large part because of the work that he's done. So congratulations, Wayne. We will miss you. And I know we'll see you around and the fruits of your labor for many years to come, but I wish you weren't going quite yet. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Labarge.
Thank you, Counselor. You heard Councilor Bill Dwight, former Councilor Bill Dwight, talk about 1998. Both Bill and I were elected then. And we then got to know Wayne Fiden. It's been a long time that I, as a city councilor, also have worked with Wayne. Significant difference. Every year in Ward 6, we would go after and work tirelessly to save the conservation land. We have trails going on, we have affordable housing. Just this week, I talked with Wayne personally, and in my heart, his shoes or his boots will be very difficult to fill. And I said to him, are you sure that you want to move on? He said, yes, it's time for a change. And everybody needs time for a change. But we can look, and I think what Councilor Alex Jarrett was explaining is exactly what Wayne is all about. A significant difference in our city of Northampton. And if you go back from 1998 to now and see how vibrant our city has become, it's because of Wayne, his staff, and people who are so knowledgeable and volunteers. So Wayne, thank you again. And I want to congratulate you on your 35 years of service here in the city of Northampton. You will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, I'm going to hop in here. All right. So, you know, I'm sitting here and the notes keep coming into my head. This has been the easiest thing I've ever written. But I want to say that when I first heard this name, Wayne Fiden, I was picturing like a cowboy gunslinger type guy, you know, with and instead, you know, we got Professor Fiden, and that's, you know, I want to start by just looking around Ward 3. You know, these are what I call Wayne's fingerprints. And they're just everywhere. In Ward 3, we have the Valley Bike Share stations. They're under the Main Street Railroad Bridge, at Union Station, and at Salvo House. We have that beautiful Main Street Bike Bridge. We have the railroad bike tunnel that connects east with west on our bike trail system. Wayne worked for years on that. It got to the point of like, this really isn't going to happen. It's like a dream of a tunnel that'll actually, you know, connect the whole system. And, you know, and he kept saying it's, you know, he kept diligently working on it. And eventually we got through, what was it? The state acquired the railroad, and then we were able to, with federal money, to get anyway, with Wayne, it's always a long story to get there, but he was patient enough to see the whole process through. I sit here in what people call the Montview neighborhood right now, that features the Montview Conservation Area, which was the work of two private parties, my family and the Aquadro family, working with Wayne to come up with this what Councilor Dwight would call an elegant solution, where we preserve open space and we create community. Larger projects in Ward 3, those were the smaller ones. The bigger ones are like the Pleasant Street, the Pleasant Futures redesign, so the Pleasant Holyoke intersection, it used to be the most dangerous intersection in the city. And also it was on this corridor that people just breeze through. And now if you walk through there, there's some potted trees, we have a raised crosswalk, and amazingly, everybody always stops when you step into that crosswalk. We also have that crazy raised intersection by Live 155 that, you know, the Chief Casper scratches her head, is like, that can't be right. But still, you know, that it's safe and it works, and it builds community. It's like a public square. People hang out, people walk in different ways across the intersection. The Meadows plan. What a lot of people don't know is that the Meadows plan not only codified that we're protecting our farmlands in Ward 3 and Ward 4, it also was the conversation that initiated the Ward 3 Neighborhood Association. And later, that conversation actually resulted in the Meadows City Conservation Commission, that this focus on conservation and protecting open space grew out of that and created this community conversation that is going on today down in Ward 3. Wayne introduced us to a whole lexicon of terms and concepts that we all regularly use today. None of these words were in my vocabulary when I moved here 25 years ago. And I'm sure the same is true for everybody else. Roundabout, bike corral, parklet, bike hoop, rain garden, charging station, bike lane, raised crosswalk, raised intersection, narrow travel lanes, multi-purpose trail, bike bridge, bike share, that he's taught us, just like Councillor Elkins was saying, we've been sitting in a master's level class on designing a city, and we have the vocabulary and we have evidence of this work everywhere. I'm really going long here. Safe routes to school at both Jackson Street and Bridge Street School. The Village Hill development. The Sustainable Northampton Plan, our city's strategic plan. Nothing says Wayne more than this plan. It represents a lot of public process, a lot of listening, and a lot of conversation, some of it difficult conversation. As a community, we still wrestle with this plan today, as evidenced by the public comment that we've had. While consensus was always a goal of Wayne's, so too was getting the divergent ideas into the room. Wayne was never looking for the perfect. He was looking for what takes us forward. And you can't do this unless you get everything on the table. Sustainable Northampton was and continues to be just that, an ongoing community conversation, sometimes difficult, but always bringing us forward. Projects that will continue to come to fruition when Wayne is off fishing. The former probate court building on King Street, our Main Street redesign, the Resilience Hub. Wayne has a Swiss Army knife of skills. He's a strategist, a negotiator, a pragmatist, an opportunist. He's never afraid of confrontation and never afraid to cut bait for a path forward, and always ready to jump when opportunities arise. I predict that 10 years from now, that this city council, maybe not us, but other councilors will be ratifying something that that Wayne has written and is in a file right now. That it could be it could be an improvement to a bike trail, or for affordable housing, or maybe even, I hope, for a transportation hub. We've learned a lot, we've gained a lot, and incredibly, there's still more to come of Wayne's work. What a legacy. Thank you, Wayne, for your service. I am deeply grateful you chose to come to this city to practice your trade, to rile us up a bit and lead us forward. So thank you. I just cut a whole lot out. All right, anybody else? Oh, Mayor, you feel free to jump in.
Thank you. First of all, Council President, that was really remarkable. I cannot begin to top that, and I will be very, very brief. And I've I feel very lucky that I've had other opportunities and will continue to have opportunities to talk about the impact that Wayne's had. But I do want to just take a moment to thank Director Fiden at this, his last appearance before the City Council, at least his last appearance in his role as Director of Planning and Sustainability. And I just want to thank him for all that he's done for Northampton and Florence and Leeds in his remarkable 33 years serving the city. As a counselor, I was always so appreciative of the time he gave me and how accessible he always was and his willingness to answer any question and talk through anything. And I feel extraordinarily fortunate to have been able to work with him so closely these last 6 months in City Hall. Councilor Jarrett, you know how I feel, that I'm not ready and have been in denial for quite a few weeks about this, but I'm trying to come to grips with it. So Northampton has, as the council president has just beautifully cataloged, has benefited profoundly from his expertise and Wayne's skill, his boundless energy, his forward thinking that has put us at the forefront or well ahead of the curve in so many ways as a city. So thank you dearly, Wayne, for all that you have given. Your impact is truly profound and will live on forever. And we are extraordinarily thankful. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, any other announcements? Well, I do have one that isn't related to Wayne. Well, it might be related to Wayne. You never know. That we applied for the municipal opt-out for aerial spraying, and that was approved. I don't know if Laura, are you able to share that letter with the rest of council? Did everybody get that? We'll send it out. I'll make sure Laura gets it tomorrow, and so everybody can see that. So, but all of the work that, between council, the health department and the mayor's office, that, we were under a time constraint and we pulled it off. So yay us. All right. Any other announcements? Okay, not seeing any. Next up on the agenda is, we don't have any presentations. We have the consent agenda. I'm just going to read through what's on here. We have the minutes of the May 19th, 2022 City Council meeting and the May 31st, 2022 and June 1st, 2022 budget hearings. We have that poll petition that we had the hearing on earlier. We have a whole bunch of appointments and reappointments. We have all with positive recommendations. We have Timothy Smith going to the Agricultural Commission. We have Joseph Tarantino going to the Board of Registrars. We have Brian Adams going to the Community Preservation Committee. We have Randy Kratowski going to the Conservation Commission. Joanne Levin going to the Board of Health. Michael Morton, Marilyn Clare, and Rodney Cunneth going to the Disability Commission. We have Richard Abuza going to the Housing Partnership. We have Nastasha Yakolev going to the License Commission, along with Jennifer Ewers. We have David Lukens returning to the Urban Forestry Commission. Here comes more. But we have Dennis Nolan going to the Board of Assessors, Jason Perry going to the Conservation Commission, and Joella Tarbutton Springfield going to the Northampton Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. We have an order to accept a grant and appropriate $63,115 of free cash to extend the city's fiber optic network. We have an order to appropriate $8,960 of free cash to add form-based code to the city books. We have an order to transfer $150,000 from DPW personnel services to OM. We have an order to appropriate, let's see, get the numbers right, $7,872.99 from state earmark for community care department vehicle. Okay, more appointments. I think it's important to read the appointments. We have Carmen Juno going to the Housing Partnership. We have Aaron Bazuvis going to Parks and Recreation. David Whitehall returning to the Planning Board. And these folks are going to be referred to City Services, Eamon Edge and Robert Bullrice. Robert is for the Board of Registrars and Eamon for the Arts Councils. That is the consent agenda. Are there any requests for removals? Okay, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Gore and seconded by Councilor Jarrett. There is no discussion on the consent agenda. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge, okay, I don't see
She
her.
muted? She's here.
Oh. Councilor Labarge?
Yeah, I think she's having a problem unmuting.
Okay. All right, maybe I can come back to her. Councilor Moulton,
Councilor Labarge needs to be a co-host,
okay.
as does Councilor Elkins and Councilor Moulton, I'm guessing.
Give me 1 second. I'll take care of that now. Okay. Councilor Labarge, are you?
I can't get through.
There she
Okay,
is.
we hear you now.
Hi.
Welcome.
It keeps saying the host will not let me through.
Oh dear. Okay.
Well, you're here now.
I'm back.
Are you in favor of approving the consent agenda? Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then Councilor Moulton?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, it was a brief power outage and then internet took a while to come back. That's why it disappeared. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
and Councilor Foster. Oh, did she also be no
No,
longer
I just
have?
couldn't get the button.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So that passed.
Yes.
All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Okay, I'm looking at our agenda here. We have some financial orders on first reading, but I'm thinking that we have a number of people here who are interested in Winter Street. So I'd like to move that up on the agenda, if people are okay with that. So this is a financial order. It's in second reading because it's been sent out to finance. This is order 22.076, in order to authorize acquisition of Winter Street easements. So this was referred to finance, where a public hearing was held on the layout of Winter Street. That public hearing was closed on June 8th because the request to what was it? To lay out the public way in Winter Street was withdrawn. And now what we are looking at is a taking. Is somebody from the mayor, from the DPW or the mayor's office here to speak to this? The mayor is here. That's pretty good.
Director Liscalia is here and I'm here.
Okay, and so we're changing this to we're doing a taking for an easement now, correct?
Yes.
And so could you explain the difference between the two?
Okay, I'm going to let Director Liscalia, who knows this
Thank you.
very in depth, talk about this.
Hi, councilors. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to be here to speak to Winter Street tonight. So this is part of the proposed reconstruction of Winter Street. There is a small kind of rectangular shaped piece of land at the very end of Winter Street that was never formally accepted as part of the layout of Winter Street when Winter Street was laid out many decades ago. So this happens occasionally to us when we're looking to reconstruct a roadway. And what we need to make sure of is that the city has the legal right to actually reconstruct the portions of the roadway that we're trying to reconstruct. And as we have heard some of the residents speak tonight about a couple of water main breaks that we've had here, and as part of our engineering assessment that we've engaged in over the last couple of years in preparation to redo the water main and reconstruct this roadway, what we realize is that we have a combined sewer and stormwater system on Winter Street, which is actually not acceptable from a regulatory standpoint. So we need to separate those two systems. And this small section at the end of Winter Street is actually going to serve us in a way to allow us to manage the stormwater flow, the sheet flow from the roadway. But as I just described, this very small section of roadway was never formally accepted, which means that ownership is technically reverting to the center line to each abutting property owner. So the property owner on one side owns to the center line, the property owner to the other side owns to the center line. So what we have determined as we've gone through this process is that it is in the city's best interest to take an easement over this area for the purposes of drainage and also for snow storage. So what's been happening over the years is that the city is plowing snow, pushing snow on a portion of the road that doesn't actually belong to the city. And that is not acceptable either. So what we're trying to do as part of this project is to right a historical problem. And again, to reconstruct the roadway to benefit the neighbors. We don't need to lay this out as a public roadway. We need to take an easement so that we can manage our stormwater and so that we can continue to plow snow as we have been doing for decades. All we need is an easement to do that. We don't actually need to lay out a public way. So the order that you have in front of you tonight is to take an easement for the purposes of drainage and snow storage on this small section of land at the end of Winter Street. Now, I've heard the neighbors on the call tonight, and they've said a few things, and I just want to clarify for the members of the council what has been going on over the past several weeks. The city solicitor has been in touch with the neighbor's attorney. His name is Bill Dwyer, and they have been in fairly frequent conversation over the last 6 weeks about this process, about what the city is doing and why. And about what our plans are and what our plans were tonight. We are to a place where it is now June 16th. This project needs to go to bid so we can get it done this year, or we are going to lose another construction season. So it's very frequent. We do, roadway projects all over the city. We occasionally have questions of ownership. This is not an unusual situation. This really does happen quite a bit, and it's part of our final due diligence that we do before we go to bid. So the reason we're here tonight to take this easement is because we need to get this project to bid so that we can build it this year, because we don't want to risk any further problems on Winter Street. Regarding the problems that the neighbors, the engineering problems that the neighbors may see with this plan, this morning we actually got a plan from Berkshire Design. So they had Berkshire Design take a look at some plans that we had submitted to the Conservation Commission. Berkshire Design did a review. Unfortunately, they did a review of plans that are not the current plans. And based on conversations with Chris Niebuhr, our city engineer actually has revised some of the plans to make the gravel in his parents' parking area more suitable for what he wanted to see. And we are actually not taking his parents' parking area away. We are improving it. It is going to be better when we're done than the way it is now. And we are going to continue removing snow for them, which is actually not something we should have been doing. So everything that the city is doing is actually going to benefit his parents, and it's going to benefit the neighborhood. In terms of the minutia of the engineering design, we are more than happy to engage with the neighbors and come up with something that they feel is suitable for their parents in terms of where they park during construction. We've paved many miles over the past several years. We deal with residents all the time, and we manage where their cars are and where our contractor is, and this is just typical coordination that we engage in any construction project. So that is a kind of a summary of where we are on Winter Street and what we're asking for and why. So again, we are asking for the taking of an easement on this small parcel of land so that we can continue on with our plans to reconstruct the street. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I'm going to recognize Councilor Labarge in a second. And Donna, thank you for that explanation, because that finance sent this item back. Initially, it was for the taking of the property in order to put the utilities through. And but we recognized that at that point that we were just looking for an easement for the utilities to be placed through this property. And so finance sent this back to tonight with a positive recommendation for the taking for an easement. So I just wanted to put that piece in there, that as this item changed, as it went through a committee, that finance saw that it was changing and endorsed where it was going. So Councilor Labarge.
Yes, Donna, I want to thank you for the presentation that you just presented. I am very happy to hear, as a counselor, of the resident who talked about his parents with their parking area. I'm happy to hear that. And I think the family also will thank you for that, of making sure that the parents have a better parking place than what they have now. I also agree. I've heard many people speak about we need to move on because of all the drainage problems that the residents have been having on that street. So I want to thank you. I want to thank your staff and also the mayor's office for helping to make this happen. So hopefully we can move on and settle the drainage problems. We're only taking the easement. So thank you, thank you.
Councilor Moulton.
Looks like he.
Thank you, Laura. If you could make me a co-host, I'd appreciate that. Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Labarge. I echo your remarks, and just to amplify them, I think this is a very reasonable and needed measure. The neighbors who I've talked to, as several mentioned, the majority are very concerned about the urgency of this need because of the severe damage that was suffered from the water main breaks in 2006 and 2019. The easements will allow this work to go forward this season. And as Director LaScalia just mentioned, not only will the infrastructure be repaired to the benefit of all residents of Winter Street, but the parking area in question that the Niebauers have used since they moved in to their home in the late 1950s will be improved for them, will not be taken away from them. And this is a solution that I believe will benefit every resident of Winter Street, and I urge us to approve it tonight. Thank you.
Director LaScalia.
Yeah, thank you. And just a couple of points of clarification. In this particular case, because it is a small area, we can achieve our goals just by taking an easement. We don't need to lay this out as a public way. If it were, a very long stretch of roadway, or it were a throughway, that's an example of when you'd want to lay something out as a public way, but an easement can achieve our goals here. And to the Niebauers who are on the call, what I would say is I am saying in a public meeting that we completely understand and appreciate where your parents park. We appreciate their need for access. We appreciate their need for, particular type of gravel that's not going to be, uncomfortable for them or some sort of impediment to movement. So I just want to be very clear with them that we are going to make this completely acceptable and have actually revised our plan, and will be submitting revised plans based on your comments to the Conservation Commission, which is meeting next week to permit this project, to issue the final permit. So that's our schedule, is that next week final permits will be issued for this. So and again, we just received comments from Berkshire Design this morning. So we obviously need some time to internally review that. But I do want to make it clear in a public setting that we hear you, and we are not going to do anything that is going to interfere with your parents' ability to use this area.
Councilor Labarge.
Yeah, this is for you, Donna. How long, now we have to get this in as quickly as possible, this financial order, correct? I think she's muted.
Yeah, sorry, I just unmuted myself.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, and then we go to Conservation Commission next week, and then we can go to bid, but I cannot bid this without having gone to Conservation Commission. And it is my sincere hope that we have several contractors who are already mobilized in the city. So I would hope that, that might be helpful in sort of garnering some interest, and that we can minimally get the utility work done before the snow flies.
Oh, good, because that was my question. How long would it take?
That's our hoped for schedule.
Thank you.
Hey, councilors, any other questions? Any more discussion? So this item is here for second reading.
I'd like to make a motion for the second reading.
Second.
So a motion to approve made by Councilor Labarge and seconded by Councilor Moulton. Any further discussion on in order to authorize acquisition of Winter Street easements? Okay, seeing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Okay, that order to acquire those easements passes. Let's head back to our financial orders in first reading. We have item 22.132 in order to appropriate fiscal year 2023 cash capital funds to various capital projects. And I think it'd be, if the finance director or the mayor is here, you could speak to this.
Sure, gladly.
Welcome.
So these are all capital improvement projects that you approved back in February. As you recall from the capital improvement plan discussion and orders, we said that the cash cap, we did most of the orders back then, but we said that the cash capital orders would come in the new fiscal year because that funding comes from the FY23 budget. So we are now submitting this order tonight to be considered and either referred to finance or to the consent agenda for the July 14th meeting, since there's only one meeting scheduled in July. So we wanted to get this in now.
Thank you. Counselors, any questions? Counselor Jarrett.
Thank you. I just had, are there specific traffic calming projects yet, or is this still just a general appropriation toward our projects for the next fiscal year?
I just saw Director Scalia turn her camera back on.
Yeah, I thought I could speak with this. So, you know, what we're finding is sort of as our traffic calming program continues to grow, and as we have retooled that through the Transportation and Parking Commission, what we find is that it is very helpful for us to engage our traffic engineering firm, Fuss & O'Neill, to do various studies for us around the city. And there's actually one ongoing at the high school right now. But what we envision these funds to be used for are topics that are discussed at TPC. Like, so for example, if people have a particular intersection that has a problem, or if we have a high crash rate at a particular intersection, you know, we'd like to be able to engage our traffic engineers on that. And, you know, the $25,000 is not enough to build something. With the cost of construction, like $25,000 just is not enough of an appropriation. What we really need is an analysis to tell us what to build. And then what we can do is we can bid that as part of our roadway construction project. So what we foresee this funding for is a study of particularly problematic intersections. And there are actually a couple that are on our radar that I believe you and I, Councilor, have been talking about recently. Both in the Ward 5 area, in your area. So one's off of North Maple Street, and one is off of Middle Street. So those are two intersections we'll be taking a look at, and that's examples of what this money would be used for.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So, Mayor, this is essentially the financial orders to implement spending that we approved in the capital improvement plan.
That is absolutely right.
Thank you. Councilor Labarge. Is she trying to unmute again?
You're muted, Councilor Labarge.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I would like to make a motion to move this appropriate cash capital funds to the various capital projects to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge and seconded by Councilor Jarrett to send item 22.132 to the consent agenda at our next meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call please, Laura.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
And Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Okay. Item 22.132 has been sent to our consent agenda at our next meeting. Next up, 22.134, in order to reprogram funds for NPS playground upgrades. The mayor's office is looking for 2 readings on this. Mayor, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. So our hope with this order is to create a school district-wide playground upgrade account to address, different needs that arise at all the different playgrounds throughout the year. So there is, this is sort of pulling from different areas to create this account that once something is needed, we could just go to this sort of general playground account, as opposed to if there's a need at Ryan Road, but we have, like right now, there's a Leeds Bridge Fund. So we would have to come and have a different fund for that. So we're trying to have a more general fund because playgrounds need pretty regular maintenance. So this is pulling from a few different places to create this fund. So one is the track resurfacing fund. So that $15,000 was for design, but the consultant has stated that the track is actually in good shape and nothing is needed to be done for quite a few years. And so it actually showed up in the capital improvement plan for FY27, but there's good potential that actually it can be pushed farther than that. And the other is from Leeds and Bridge Street playground equipment. And so there's still some work that needs to be done at Leeds and Bridge Street, but that total amount isn't needed. But again, this would be a general playground fund. So for that additional work, we could pull from this fund. And then also there's some that's coming from an AC electrical upgrade account that, as we're sort of moving forward with trying to figure out how to do more kind of global changes to meet our carbon neutrality goals in our buildings, we are sort of rethinking some of these potential changes that we were going to use using AC units. And also we've sort of made changes in the schools in terms of where summer school is to adapt to sort of heat needs. So now summer school has been moved to the high school, which already has some cooling there. So that all of these funds are not needed at this point in that NPS fund. So so that's the goal, is to kind of bring these all together to be able to work on some of our playgrounds.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a great answer. Well, the order only has like 50 words. All right. Any questions for the mayor on this order? I'll entertain a motion.
Yep, I make a motion to send this order to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge and seconded by Councilor Moulton, and Councilor Jarrett has his hand raised.
Sorry.
I think
There
you're
we
on.
go. Yeah. So the mayor's office was requesting 2 readings. So I believe the motion we would need to do would be to allow for a second reading tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that.
Suspend the rule.
Yeah, so first, okay, so Councilor Labarge, could you withdraw your motion and then make one to suspend the rules?
I would withdraw my motion and I would like to suspend the rule.
I second that.
Okay, the motion is to suspend the rules by, the motion's made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Moulton. This is for us to approve this tonight.
2 readings.
Yeah, we'll do the second reading tonight.
Yeah.
Any discussion on suspending the rules? Seeing none, Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, great. The rule has been suspended.
Move second reading.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Jarrett and seconded by Counselor Labarge to have second reading on this order 22.134. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
and Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Okay, that order has been approved. Next up is item 22.135, in order to appropriate $88,000 in free cash to fire department parking lot project on Carlin Drive. Mayor, would you like to speak to this?
Yes. So this is yet another project from the capital improvement plan. And actually, Director McCarthy is here to talk about sort of in depth what's going on with this project and why we're coming to the council for some additional appropriation for it.
Okay.
Here.
Welcome, Director McCarthy.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So this request for additional funds is for the rear parking lot expansion at the main fire department. And the project is already in construction, and we are running into subsurface issues, which affects the drainage on the site. And we're also seeing scope of the work within the project that called out for milling and overlay, which now appears that underneath this is more clay, which over the years has risen and dropped with freeze thaw. The location is directly behind the fire station, close to the rear doors. And if you take a close look at it, it is just consists of all cracks. And you can see that along the back of the building where the detention pond is, that the clay underneath the asphalt has been receiving water. And over the years, the freeze thaw has actually raised the inlet into the detention pond, preventing site drainage and also creating ponding and ice buildup during the winter. So we've sought a change order to fix this issue, which would hopefully coincide with the other improvements on the site. And that's the reason we need the money.
Thank you. Any questions for Director McCarthy? Almost called you doctor. Okay, let's see.
There's 2 readings on this one, Council.
Yeah, so
Councilor Labarge.
yeah, so if somebody, I entertain a motion to suspend the rules on this.
I make the motion to suspend the rule.
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Counselor Labarge, and I think it was seconded by Counselor Elkins, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. All right, we have a motion to suspend the rules. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call on suspending the rule.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
and Counselor Nash.
Yes. Okay, the rule has been suspended and we can now consider approving this in second reading tonight.
Make a motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made by Counselor Perry, seconded by Counselor Moulton. Any discussion on approving this this money for the parking lot at the firehouse? Seeing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Gore,
Yeah.
Counselor Jarrett,
Yes.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
and Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, that order has been approved. Okay, we've already dealt with the easement on Winter Street. Now we're up to orders, and I am going to take these out of order. I'd like to next bring
Counselor
up.
Nash, sorry to interrupt. Could I have a 5-minute recess? Or could we?
Let's take a 5-minute recess, and everybody can anticipate that that order will be up. And I'll be recusing myself, and Counselor Foster will be in the chair.
Thank you.
Okay, 5 minutes. related to me by marriage. He is my brother-in-law, and it would be a conflict of interest for me to vote on this matter because it has to do with compensation for him. So I am going to turn off my my camera and step back from this conversation and turn things over to our very able Vice President, Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Councilor Nash. And before we take this up, Councilor Moulton, did you want to have a chance to speak?
Yes, I have a disclosure to make. Former Councilor Dwight appeared in a video endorsing my election that was used on my campaign website last year after consulting with the city solicitor. Because there is no financial interest in this relationship, I'm not prevented from participating in the discussion or voting on this measure.
Councilor Elkins.
I suppose also out of an abundance of caution, I sponsored this on behalf of former Councilor Dwight, but through that process have been in conversation with Attorney Seawold, and I also had the lovely benefit of an endorsement from Mr. Dwight. But for the same reasons that Councilor Moulton does not have a conflict, I also agree that I do not, and obviously would not if I did, I would obviously would not be putting this forward. So with that disclosure.
Thank you, councilors. So Councilor Elkins, as the sponsor of this act, it's I think it would be helpful actually to read this one. I know we don't read everyone into the record, but would you be willing to read this one as a start to an introduction?
Sure. Let me get over to the page. City of Northampton, Massachusetts, and City Council, June 16th, 2022, upon the recommendation of the Councilor Marissa Elkins. 22.133, in order for special legislation relative to creditable service of William Dwight. Ordered that whereas William Dwight served as Ward 1 councilor for 4 terms, 1998 to 2005, during which time he did not opt into the retirement system. Whereas Mr. Dwight returned to the city council for 5 terms as councilor at large, serving from 2012 to 2021. Whereas during his 18 years of service on the city council, Mr. Dwight earned at least $5,000 per year. Whereas, and actually we need to there needs to be some editing in the legislative process. Now, therefore, be it ordered, voted to petition the general court to the end that legislation be adopted precisely as follows. The general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the mayor approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court. The mayor is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. So, an act directing the Northampton Retirement Board to grant creditable service to William Dwight. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and General Court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Notwithstanding any general or special law or regulation to the contrary, the Northampton Retirement Board shall credit William Dwight, a member of the Northampton Retirement System, with creditable service for the period of January 3rd, 2012 to January 1st, 2014, inclusive, for the purpose of determining his superannuation retirement allowance pursuant to paragraph A of subdivision 2 of section 5 of chapter 32 of the general laws. Before the date that any retirement allowance becomes effective in the case of William Dwight, he shall pay into the annuity savings fund of the retirement system of the city in one sum or installments upon such terms and conditions as the board may prescribe, an amount equal to that which would have been withheld as regular deductions from his regular compensation for such previous service plus buyback interest. This act shall take effect upon its passage. Did I get it all? I was reading my own copy. I appreciate the screen scare, but I had switched over to another screen. So I hope it matched what you had up on the screen, Chair.
It did.
Okay, good.
It matched what I saw, Councilor Elkins. And Councilor Elkins, did you want to speak to this beyond reading it?
I do briefly, in part to say that my suggestion is going to be that we directly send this to legislative for a couple of reasons. well, so I'm going to say what my recommendation is, and then I'll go back and say a little bit more about it. For reasons that I will explain, and I think also will be clear through the legislative matters review, this comes about as a bit of a sort of a lapse in our bureaucratic housekeeping that is a little bit particular to elected officials who qualify for benefits, but because unlike regular full-time city employees who are sort of really pulled into a well-oiled machine of HR process, it hasn't always been the case every term for elected officials that they were promptly notified of the benefits that they were eligible for and given the opportunity to buy in. And which has effects both at the time and then also later as Mr. Dwight, as Bill is finding upon retirement, where he's finding himself just shy of what is needed to be able to have benefits. I want to preface this by saying, while it is a little bit of an anomaly, a situation that arises because with elected officials, and we're not unique in Northampton to have this come up, there are cases that have been decided by the courts in Massachusetts around this issue, and elected officials have kind of gotten the short end of the stick because of a lack of communication and limited options to remedy what has gone wrong. So, and I say all that just to say, this is a constituent issue. It is not a Bill Dwight issue. It is, I look at this as something that came about because of the nature of his particular service, to be sure. But when he asked me after he and his wife did the research needed to understand what the issue is, asked me if I would bring this forward, I agreed to do it after looking at it very carefully, and would do so for any other former elected official or any constituent that found themselves in this weird picayune place. That being said, the other thing, the reason why it needs to go to legislation is because there is actually a good deal of research that in conversation that has gone on between Bill Dwight and Senator Comerford's office around this issue, and research around the legal intricacies of it, and some materials that I definitely want to make sure is in the public record and that the public has every opportunity to review and feel like they've had an opportunity to be heard on and see. So I don't want to belabor things tonight because I think that there will be questions and need to belabor it down the road after first reading. But suffice it to say is this was a very narrow place in time where if he'd had the opportunity to, oh, hang on, sorry.
That's okay.
We'll take a quick commercial break then to note that I believe Councilor Maori is that you, Councilor Maori, the Rachel's iPhone? I just wanted to be able to note if it is her that when she's around.
Yes, I
it
am
is.
here.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So if we could note that in the record, Laura, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the other thing that we can do, while Councilor Elkins needs to deal with something off screen, is if we want, I noticed that Mr. Dwight is here, we could vote to recognize him if we have questions directly for him. It would take a motion to recognize Mr. Dwight.
So moved. Second that.
Okay, Laura, can we take a roll call on, it's very funny to call you Mr. Dwight, but can we take a roll call on recognizing Mr. Dwight for purposes of this conversation as well?
Sure. Okay. Councillor Gore.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton.
Yes.
Councillor Nash is recused. So Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Councillor Elkins.
Yes.
And Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Oh, and Councillor Maori, who is now.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Councillor
yes.
Elkins, we just took a vote to recognize Mr. Dwight in case we have questions for him. I think you were wrapping up, but just wanted to make sure if there's more you wanted to say.
I was just saying for reasons of public transparency and to make sure that we get the legislative language correct. My recommendation and hope for tonight is a swift referral to legislative matters.
Councilors, do you have any questions at introduction for this? Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. We're looking at Councilor Dwight. We both were elected in 1998. So looking at his 4 terms from 1998 to 2005, we're looking at 8 years, correct? Councilor Elkins, it's 8 years.
Yes.
That he did not opt into the retirement, correct? I also had checked into the city clerk's office in the budget books because I had concerns about, I couldn't remember how much we made starting off in 1998 through the 8 years. So in 1994, councilors made 5,000. In 2006, 5,000. So I'm just giving you an idea here. In 1998 through 2005 was $5,000. So that is correct on that. I had talked with the city clerk on it and she checked out that part for me. So I feel comfortable with that. I don't have a problem with this. I mean, he's very willing to go ahead and make out an installment plan or pay the whole amount in full. So if he's willing to do that to get his time back, are we looking at the 8 years of time that he has to pay back into that retirement?
No, and Bill, I'll ask you to jump in if I say anything wrong here, but it's just the 2 years that's mentioned because when he came back as city councilor at large, there was a miscommunication and he was not given, and we have communications with the he has communications with the city that I'll make available through the rest of the process, showing that there was a miscommunication. He wasn't told of his opportunity to buy in, and they thought that I think, as I understand it, he thought he'd remedied that, but then it turned out not quite. And I also want to say, like, the big issue here. So this isn't a handout. This is him offering to pay back in.
That's right.
What it is, and it is for the purpose of being able to qualify for benefits that his 10 years of service would qualify him for if the bureaucracy had gone to as it would have. And it's only worth noting that we don't have universal health care. We still find ourselves in this situation where folks who retired and given service and worked all their lives find themselves in this situation. And are upon the mercy. I'd also note conversations with Senator Comerford's office. There's no guarantee that even if we if we send this forward to the legislature that they agree, that they pass it. So it's just really just an opportunity for Bill, in light of his service, to pay back money so that then he'll qualify for these benefits that he did qualify for because of service. It's just a housekeeping matter.
And I do want to say that when we got elected, there was a lack of communication. There's no question about it. And that even happened again with another counselor not knowing about the health plans that were available for counselors. I myself, if I didn't hear it from city employees, I would have probably been in the same boat as Bill was. But I was very fortunate. I heard it from staff and got into that retirement plan right off the bat. So, I do not find a problem with this. As a city councilor right now, no matter who it was, I would agree if they're willing to do a buyback. You're paying for that out of your own pocket. Thank you.
And I would just add by way of, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, go ahead and follow up. Yeah.
Okay. I would just add by way of, if it hardens anybody, that the orientation that new counselors got was thorough and complete, and I feel thoroughly notified of and have taken advantage of all the benefits. So hopefully the city will not find and no elected servant will find themselves in this position again down the road. And in the meantime, we can at least give the legislature an opportunity to allow Bill to do this.
Any other questions? Councilor Labarge, I see your hand, but just want to see if anybody else had a question before we move. Okay, Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. Councilor Elkins, I want to thank you for stepping forward and hopefully making it happen for Bill Dwight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Labarge.
Okay, and we have already gone to the pains to recognize you, Bill Dwight. So I see your hand up if you'd like to chime in.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Actually, I do very much appreciate it. The only thing that I would add to this is part of this kerfuffle was that I was working closely, my wife and I were working closely with David Shipka of the retirement board quite a while ago. David explained to us that if I did buy back the 2 years time that I would qualify. And we did that, actually. I've already paid in. It's already, I bought this stuff. I paid back my time. And then in November, PURAC, which let me see, stands for the Public Employment Retirement Administration Commission, sent out a memo saying that they no longer recognize or allow buyback time for former officials or even standing officials. The fact was I was already bought in and already paid out. So that was November. As you know, in November, I was effectively no longer going to be a counselor anyway. So at that point, a horse had left the barn. And as such, and I'm not going to lay the blame at anyone's feet here. This is just one of these, I think Councilor Elkins described it aptly. It's just one of these wrinkles, a bureaucratic wrinkle that I happen to be caught in. And I understand all the circumstances. I really do appreciate all the people who invested their time and energy in this for me for this one singular reason. And I also do this with my eyes open. We've done a number of petitions to the legislature, far more dramatic, far more encompassing, and far more pertinent and relevant to the community at large. So I don't harbor too many illusions that this will actually be realized, but I do appreciate it if it's possible that it could survive this council and survive the mayor's and eventually meet the approval. And then we'll see how it does. Then my next job is to go have a chat with the legislators, but thank you all very much for even considering this. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, then it looks like we have a suggestion from Councilor Elkins, but we would need a referral. Or we would need a motion, I should say.
I'd move to refer it to legislative matters.
Second.
Any discussion on referral? Okay, then Laura, would you please call the roll on referral to legislative matters?
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Sorry.
Maori,
There she is.
okay.
I can't.
Sorry. Yes, this is Counselor Maori.
Okay, and are you voting yes also on the move to refer, or the motion to refer?
She voted yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
and Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes and we can welcome back Council President Nash. Thanks, Bill.
It's nice to be back, and I enjoyed a cookie. Okay. Let's see. The other, all right, where'd we go here? Oh, this is the thing. Oh, we can call Wayne into the room. Okay, we're still on orders. We have order 22.129, in order to petition the general court to further amend Chapter 86 for Chapel Street. This is in first reading. And ooh, there was an echo. Wayne, could
Can we have a
you?
moment of fanfare, please?
Oh, yes.
Presenting for the last time at the City Council, Director of Planning and Sustainability, Wayne Biden.
I think we need trumpets.
I think Wayne's muted.
Can't unmute here.
Oh, no. Dear.
Thank you. And I do have to preface by saying thank you so much for all your warm comments. That I was really glad we weren't meeting in public and my camera is off, so you didn't see me crying and tearing up. It was all very sweet, so I appreciate it. So I think the order is clear. I just want to give some background. So 1994, we got legislation through to allow the city to create what ended up being the Village Hill, so the redevelopment of Hampton State Hospital. And a few months after we got the legislation through, we asked at the time Representative Bill Nagel, could he help us get the so-called Parcel C, the parcel that goes from Route 66 to Burke's Pit Road, that includes now the Ray Ellerbrook Field. It was a somewhat convoluted negotiation process in the House. At the time, the state was very concerned about giving away state land. So the legislation is this very odd language, which basically says it's being given to the city as settlement for us hosting the Northampton State Hospital for all those years. And as I understand it, was just they were trying to separate Northampton from other communities. So because they were worried about the state giveaway, they both included that odd language. And they said it was coming to Northampton only for municipal use purposes. City Council, a decade later, transferred the vast majority of the property to the Recreation Commission to be the permanently protected Ellerbrook Field recreation area. At the time, the fire chief thought he might someday want a fire substation out there. So we kept that land out in case that made sense for a future fire substation. And then that moment passed, they decided that didn't make sense. We didn't need the substation. And so the property sat there. You all, as city councilors, recently surplused this property to allow it to be used for affordable housing. This is, after the former mayor looked at it for animal control facility, decided it didn't make sense. The neighborhood said, but we would love housing and we'd actually love affordable housing. So again, council supported that. Because the deed restriction that can only be used for municipal uses, our feeling is we can only lease the property for 99 years. And that's doable. There are people who'd use 99-year lease for affordable housing. But even though there'd be no city liability, the attorney for some of the nonprofits we talked to said they were worried they couldn't get financing with that restriction that said only municipal uses. Right? So we all, I think this council strongly supports the concept that affordable housing is a municipal use. But unlike, a recreation field or a fire station, that's not universal. And so that's the concern. So this legislation, this would go back to the state legislature and say, we would like you to lift that restriction on municipal uses. I want to disclose one thing so you know how this might go through. We believe this is going to be used for affordable housing. You see the whereas clauses that's for affordable housing. We are asking the legislature just to lift the restrictions, period, to give the city the most amount of flexibility. If this mayor or some future mayor ever wanted to use the property for anything other than affordable housing, it would have to come back to council. The only authority right now the mayor has is to surplus this for affordable housing. That's completely our intention. It's strictly if that falls apart for some reason. So just giving you, one simple example, there's no sewer to this property. We have to spend a significant amount of money. We've done a sewer feasibility study. The estimate's about $290,000. If it turns out that that $290,000 is too big for affordable housing and instead we wanted it, I don't know, something different, it's nice to have the flexibility. So that's why it's the idea is we would like the city council and the mayor to have the authority for this property without the legislature. But this wouldn't limit your abilities in any way, shape, or form. And for your information, we have applied for a grant, no idea if we're going to get it, that would help pay for the sewer. So we're still intending it to be affordable housing, and we're moving forward in due diligence. We just want to leave all the options open for future generations.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Labarge.
Yes, Wayne, right now, we only could use that property for municipal use only, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so what we're asking for is to lift that restriction, correct?
That's correct.
And what would we call that restriction?
So it basically would amend the acts of 1994. When the land came to the city, it said only to be used for municipal uses. They would basically just amend the acts in 1994 to drop the word only for municipal uses.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I think it makes perfect sense if we're going to go to all the effort to make it so we can build affordable housing there, that we also get more latitude while we're at it. So I think this is a great idea.
Right.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, Wayne, one more question, please. On that property, which we were looking at putting a dog control shelter over there, how many lots would you get out of that piece of property for affordable housing?
So we're working with Valley Community Development Corporation. They're doing an assessment. So we don't really have the final number. We're assuming multifamily housing. The site, for comparison, the site on Laurel Street is probably 20 units. And this, or 22 units, somewhere in that range. This site is definitely more constrained because there's a hillside that goes away from the street.
Yep.
It's going to be significantly fewer than Laurel Street. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means 12 units. I think we're not at that point yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilors, I'm not seeing any other questions. This is in first reading. So if this being in order, if we're done talking about it, then it'll be on our agenda at our next meeting, and where we can take a motion to approve it. Okay. These new rules are strange sometimes.
I know.
So Wayne, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is it. This is the final send off.
You're never going to see me again.
Yeah. Thank you, Wayne, for all your work.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, next up, we've dealt with that order. Now we are up to Councilor Maori is joining us. Wonderful. Let's see, we're up to item 22.131, an ordinance extending the effective date of section 272-18 to October 31st, 2022. This is in first reading. Process note, 2 readings are requested here. So first, Councilor Maori, can you speak to this request here, and then we'll talk about suspending rules and possibly approving.
Councilor
I
Nash?
can't, Councilor Conflict has something to say though.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yeah, so I recused myself on all the past workings of this particular ordinance, so I'm going to recuse here. This ordinance might possibly have a financial impact on my business, so I'll see you after the fact.
Thank you, Councilor Jarrett. Sorry I missed your hand in this busy gallery. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Councilor Maori.
Yeah, so I believe, I don't know if the DPW director has spoken yet, but she could certainly, say her point of view on this. Basically, when I heard from Amy Cahalan, I've heard about some difficulties businesses are feeling and a little overwhelmed, and also some supply chain issues. Some of the stuff we heard in January, but for me, the reason to delay is very specific. I think that I know that we're all anxious to see this enacted. I am, and I know the mayor's office is dedicated to that goal as well. And I think if we take this time, the October 31st, I believe is enough time to just do a review of the language and see if there's things we could tweak so that we don't keep delaying. So if we need to kind of give more discretion to the enforcing agent in this, pandemic world, because we did write this in a pre-pandemic world. So I would like to take this opportunity to both get the delay for more time for businesses, but also with the specific goal of making, just reviewing it and seeing if we can strengthen it so we don't have to delay it again. And kind of look at it with an updated eye. So that's why I'm asking for that amount of time. Summer is a little slow in terms of municipal meetings, so I thought that was enough to kind of look it over, and if we need to go through any subcommittees or reviews, we'll have time to do that, and then be ready to roll it out.
Thank you, Councilor.
Sure.
Anyone else want to speak to this? Councilor Moulton.
Yes, I want to support I know this is the second delay, but I want to support this. I heard Amy Cahalan tonight speak, and the key words that I took away from her comments were that this be a partnership and not punitive. And I think that, as Councilor Maori has said, the more that we can work with the enforcement agent to make sure that we're educating and working with businesses on implementing this successfully, the better off we'll be in doing this. So I support this delay until October 31st.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I'm going to support this also up until October 31st. And even talking with business owners, I think this is the right direction that we're going in, of working. And you heard Amy, like Rachel has talked about Amy, Councilor Moulton has, and I've talked with Amy. And right now, just talking with some of the business owners, if you look at Strong Avenue, it looks busy, then sometimes it doesn't. But some of the stores are still not vibrant yet. So I think this is in the right direction. And I want to thank you, Councilor Miller, for working with Amy and the business people of moving this forward, of delaying it. It's just the right move at the right time. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing, oh, Mayor.
Hi, I just want to take a moment and thank Councilor Maori for her continual work on this and her continual sort of molding of it and listening and you know, just her willingness and her commitment to keep working on this to get it to a place where you know, she's right. I think this is something that we all very much believe in. This has been an incredibly hard time for businesses, and you know, we're all just trying to enact this in a way that will be as effective yet also as sort of sensitive to the moment we're in and the struggles that people are having. So I'm very grateful to her for her continual work with my office, with the DPW director, with businesses, with the Youth Commission, with everyone to keep this moving forward and sort of evolve it to where it needs to be the best ordinance you can. So thank you, Councilor Maori.
All right, I'm going to hop in here. So yeah, hats off to Councilor Maori for her work on this. That you know, that this has been a difficult time to implement change, especially for our downtown restaurant communities, and you know, that Councilor Maori has been in communication with Amy Kaline and with the mayor's office and with DPW, and that I really appreciate that this is working towards being a partnership rather than being, you know, city council making a rule and you better follow it. You know, that this is about a meaningful change. And I also want to note that while this discussion has been going on, that our restaurant community has been changing the materials that they're using for takeout, which is largely what this ordinance is focused on. And that next time you go and get takeout from a restaurant downtown, take note of the materials. Not everybody is there yet, but there is a wide number of businesses that have already made the shift or mostly made the shift. Because as we've heard from our business community, sometimes there's items you know, for certain circumstances where it's really hard to come up with the right container. But that the change is happening, and I think that, you know, that this new start date is just the wise thing to do. And so well done, Councilor Maori, and to the mayor's office and into our business community. So I'll be supporting this. Okay.
I'd like to suspend the rule.
Second.
Okay, motion to suspend the rule made by Councilor Labarge and seconded by Councilor Moulton. Any discussion? Hearing none, could we have a roll call on suspending the rule, Laura?
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
And Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Okay. The rule to wait until our next meeting to approve this has been suspended, and we can now, I will now entertain a motion to approve this tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Moulton, seconded by Councilor Labarge to
Recording
approve.
stopped.
Oops.
What's that?
Oh, it's starting again.
Recording in progress.
Weird.
Okay,
I was
so
trying to put the
on
tab
the,
on my agenda. I think I might have hit a button that did that, so apologies.
thank you for your honesty. Okay, on the floor is 22.131, an ordinance extending the effective date to October 31st for our plastic reduction ordinance. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Labarge,
Yes.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
and Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Oh, I took things out of order here. Okay, yeah, so the date for implementing plastic reduction has been extended to October 31st. And then we're going to go back to what I missed here, interim procedure for conducting city council meetings. So this is, I think it's mostly an update. Just so everybody knows that the legislature has still not voted on whether or not to allow us to continue meeting remotely. There is an item at the legislature to do that, but it's somehow tied into the budget. So unless the budget gets approved, the extension doesn't happen. And that's my understanding. And that, so come July 15th, which is the day after our next council meeting, we may be required to meet in person. I am doubtful. I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm expecting, that we will continue to meet remotely. And I'd like us to, if we can't, it's pretty much a done deal. So it doesn't matter what planning we do around hybrid meetings or whatever. But I think it would be good that in the interim time between now and the 14th, we start considering, what we would like our proceedings to look like, assuming that remote meetings are allowed. I want to let people know that that NAM, who's broadcasting us right now, has set up council chambers to do teleconferencing that would allow all of council or part of council to meet in person. And then it gets broadcast out over cable, but also people are able to access that meeting via Zoom. Councillor Foster was part of, and Councillor Moulton were part of ARPA meetings that were held in that manner. I recently was in a part of a search committee that met in council chambers. And I think the system is, it seems like it's pretty effective. And so this is all to say for our committees, I think it would be worth considering holding trying out a hybrid committee meeting. That we just referred something to Legislative Matters. I know Community Resources is thinking about doing this if we can figure out how to get enough people to be part of the hybrid. And that, but that now's the time to be trying this out to see if we think it's effective. And that I know there's a consensus here from our past discussions that that counselors still want to have the ability to be remote, and I think it goes beyond want. I think it's need. That often Councillor Perry is zooming in from work, and I know other counselors have children at home, and that there's other things in life that will pull us in different directions. There was a meeting last year where I was able to zoom in while taking care of my mother as she was recovering from surgery. So anyway, that's my update. That's my recommendations on, to do some exploring. And do people have any thoughts on next steps here? Or you could just think about it till the 14th. Councillor Labarge.
Thank you. You were talking about the State House, the Senate. Anyways, Senate President Karen Spilka and Senate Ways and Means Chair Mike Rodriguez, who have brought forth that the current remote meeting provisions expires on July 15th, 2022. And they are also asking people in the state of Massachusetts how they feel about staying in remote, okay? So he is saying the amendment 1114 be included in the 4-year 23 budget. And it's because of due to the COVID-19 increase and for the safety of all residents involved in the state of Massachusetts. So I just want to let you know it is, and they are talking about it. And they know they have up until July 15th. So, and I do know many people who have also sent their emails in of how they feel about staying remote because of the COVID-19 and because of the increase. So I just wanted to let you know you were correct about that, but that amendment is 1114.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, based on that, we should be encouraging people to reach out to our state reps to let them know if people want to stay remote, they have to let them know. So it's probably a good idea for us to do that. Actually, would have been cool if we had a resolution right now.
I know. We could do a quick one.
But we have our emails. Maybe we'll do that on the 14th. But okay, is there Councillor Jarrett?
Thanks. I can weigh in a little bit. I'm open to either way. I think there's been so much value to the remote, but also a loss of the meetings we have in person. So if we do end up having a choice about it, I would recommend that we tie it to the COVID risk status. If we could meet in person, or a quorum of us can meet in person, if the status is low, otherwise remotely. And there's also some talk, I think in the past we had, about the option of how the public could participate, whether the public would just participate remotely or in person. So that's something to think about. I guess there's the concern would be if suddenly a lot of people are packing in person in the council chambers, that could be a COVID concern. But if it sounds like we are committed to continuing to allow a remote option for the members of the public to participate, which I think is important. So then maybe that would be less of a concern. But I do love the idea of us testing it out. I think for legislative matters, not for the next one, but perhaps for one after that, we could do a test.
Cool. Councillor Perry.
All right, I might as well weigh in as well. As you said, I have been benefiting from being remote and the ability to engage in my commitment to the city council, as well as my commitments to my job. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity. It has allowed me to do all of this. I also think ahead, as a member of the special committee looking at barriers to service. I can say that if we were looking for people, a diverse group of representation, I think that having the ability to be remote is really going to help people who do have children or who do work non-traditional hours to be involved in their cities. So, I also look forward to meeting with everyone in city council chambers. I agree with Councilor Jarrett that we are losing something from not being together. But I also want to make sure that we balance this for the future and having both, because it's not just beneficial for myself, but I think that it really has been a great service to the citizens to be able to call in and Zoom in and stay abreast of what is happening in their city. And it would be a shame to lose that connection, especially in a time where it feels like we are all, while we were just a Zoom call away, we're more disconnected than ever in a lot of ways. So, with that being said, Council President has reached out to me about community resources, and I will get back to you ASAP, because I think that will be a great opportunity to try out a hybrid model. It's in the name of the committee as community resources, so I will let you know about that. But I am firmly in the camp of let's continue doing this as we navigate this COVID world.
I know.
Thank you. Councillor Elkins.
I would just briefly add that I actually think that the reasons to continue or to find ways to have a hybrid option, both for counselors to be able to participate remotely when needed, and also the public, that actually the things that we've discovered during COVID around representation and opportunities and sort of the diversity of people who can participate are actually, for me at this point, more compelling than the reasons than COVID being reason to continue by Zoom. I mean, many of us, have, been compelled to different work circumstances, risks be damned, to represent people or to help serve people who, risks be damned, were compelled to be in the situations that they were in. And which is not to say, we've all been through it and those things are very serious. I'm not minimizing those, but at this point, with so many things outside of this realm opening up, what I would hate to see is us lose the lessons that we've learned about participation and what we gain by having this as an option, as we all, sort of rush out in a I'd say post-COVID world, but that's not exactly right. But, as whatever comes next, and we begin to do things in person, I'm ready. I'm ready to be back in person and see all of you guys in the flesh. And I also never want to be in a position to feel like I have to miss a meeting because I'm meeting a family obligation that I otherwise could if there were a Zoom option. And I would hate to not hear from people in the community to participate who otherwise could, but they can't be physically present, whether it be for COVID or for any other reason. So I'm hoping that we maintain some hybrid form of participation, and I'm ready to have those experiments and be ready for when the next thing comes.
Thank you, Councillor Elkins. Councillor Maori.
Yeah, Councillor Elkins, thank you for that. And Councillor Perry, that's kind of, you hit all my thoughts. I was noting when President Nash was talking about when he was away, I remember that. And actually tonight, this was a really unusual situation where I was at a physical graduation, so I couldn't, I was late, but I was thinking I don't think I've ever missed a meeting, and it's because of remote. And certainly when I ran the first time and the second time, I'm prepared to go and be in physical meetings. But I think what it has allowed is just an incredible, threshold of participation. It's hard to think of an excuse not to get on your remote meeting. I mean, it's as you say, you can take, if you're away or traveling even, or there's ways to continue being able to work, and I've really appreciated that. I can't quite picture the hybrid, and I'm actually anxious to try it out because I have some concerns, and I would like to try it out and see how that works. And I think my concerns will probably be quelled, but my concerns are basically about attention and being able to give the proper attention in the right directions and all that. So I think it'd be a great idea. So is the feeling, President Nash, what you were saying is basically like, let's kind of test drive this in some of the subcommittees. Of course, we also have this timeline we're not sure of, but because that to me sounds like a good idea. A smaller crowd, those would be smaller crowds, probably smaller participatory, crowds and smaller council crowds. So I think that would be a good place to start. and in a subcommittee.
Yeah, that was the thought, is that,
Yeah.
you know, with a committee meeting that, that it doesn't have the you know, doing it with a council meeting where we're making the big decisions, whereas in a committee meeting, you know, I think you have a little more latitude to have things not be as perfect, and that it's, committees are a good place to get information and bring it back. So
Yeah, so sounds like we have a plan, kind of, you know, try. There's some unknowns, but that we can start dipping our toe in the water in our subcommittees and get used to the hybrid, and that makes sense to me. Thank you.
So if anybody, is the chairs of any of the committees are considering this, and you want to kick around ideas around how to make it happen, I'm happy to chat with you about it. I think one of the things we need to think about is, as we do this, we should probably have a quorum in the room for the hybrid model, and that might be the toughest threshold to hit right now. But I think minimally, while we're trying this out, that should be a goal. I know that in East Hampton and in other cities and towns that they look at having a quorum in the room as a requirement. And so this might be a rule for us to consider as we move forward. So, all right. So any other thoughts?
I have my hand up, but I might be in a very small box.
Oh, there you are. These new glasses, I'm not seeing.
I felt like if I got closer.
Yeah, yelling usually works. Go ahead, Councilor Foster.
So yeah, as you mentioned, I did, Northampton Open Media has done a great job with a hybrid setup in council chambers. We had a ARPA commission meeting that was hybrid. It was smoother and quicker than I had anticipated. As a person in the room, it was relatively easy. The screens were great to be able to. The one person who was speaking to us had their camera off, but their box was still highlighted, and we could see that in the room. So I think technically, I was really impressed with the setup. The question I have, I don't believe city services will be meeting before the next council meeting. We're still working to set our next date. So as others work on it, I think the concern that I have is that right now we're all really equal. I've said this before, and I noticed that with public participation, where I'm looking at you, you're all right here, the same size boxes and, arranged. The concern I have is when, let's say 6 of us were in the room and 3 weren't, what you miss, and I don't think I quite appreciated it until it was a little disorienting doing hybrid and not being able to see. I didn't know who else was in the room because it was the speaker view that was highlighted. But I noticed, like, sometimes when somebody's talking, other counselors are nodding their heads, or there's actually a lot of body language even that we're getting on screen. And of course, in the room, we really got that. But I just would be curious what people think of that dynamic of, is it truly feeling like equal participation of those in the room and not in the room? And as others mentioned, for me, the reasons for remote meetings go well beyond the risk of COVID, but there's so many other very compelling reasons that it's working. And so I just want to just be paying attention to that as we think about what choices we want to make. Is I think our biggest goal or our charge as a body is to conduct the business of the city in a transparent and efficient way. And I that's our charge and the most important thing I think we do as counselors. So I just want to really consider how different formats are contributing or perhaps hampering our ability to carry that out.
Councilor Maori.
Right, Councilor Foster, that was my concern with hybrid. That's what I'm having a hard time picturing how it doesn't disfavor or what that looks like. And I just need to try that out. And actually was also thinking, so I share that concern. And when President Nash was talking, I was thinking, let's just be mindful of, we are creating a new job maybe for Laura. I mean, if we have to have a quorum, that means someone's going to have to go, okay, who's going to be in the room tonight and like play that role. So, I mean, it might not be a big deal, but let's just try to watch what new jobs are sprouting up and be mindful about who we're giving them to and what that looks like. I don't want Laura to have to run around, right before meetings trying to figure out who's going to be in person and who's not. And it might be seamless, but let's just kind of like observe that.
I thoroughly agree with being cautious and thoughtful. Yeah, because the last 2 years we've been forced through a culture change. This is one that we will probably be able to implement on ourselves by choice rather than by circumstance. So and the thing that I was talking about this, I think I've mentioned this before with former school committee rep Ronnie Gold. I was like, well, Ronnie, how do we do this? He looked at me and says, Jim, the schools do this all the time. This is the way, school IEPs, school meetings, they just live in this hybrid world. And that it kind of struck me like, that we need to explore this, that this is the reality that, many people in the world are dealing with, and at the same time, I'm very sensitive to what Councillor Foster and Councillor Maori just brought up. We don't want to be having certain groups have advantages because they're in the room or not in the room, anyway, we have a lot to think about and things to try out, and we'll see what the legislature allows us to do on the 15th. So, and Councillor Perry and Councillor Gore, I appreciate that the select committee will, I know I had a discussion with Javier the other day, and he's very interested in this matter. And I think it's a perfect topic for the select committee to be tackling, because we've had a lot of people who are now part of public process because of remote meetings. So and I know this is on the select committee's radar. So all right, I think we're done talking about this for tonight. Anybody agree with me on that? And I think that's the last item on the agenda. As we talked so much, my computer went to sleep. Let's see. I think that's it. We're all done, right, Laura?
That's right.
All right, when Laura nods, that means we're really done. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Perry, and I think it was seconded by Councillor Jarrett.
Yes,
No?
it was me.
Okay, Councillor Labarge.
Thank you.
No discussion on ending the meeting. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
Yes.
Councillor Nash,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
Councillor Elkins,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
Yes.
Councillor Gore,
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett,
Yes.
and Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned, and go Celtics.
Oh.
Good night.
Jim, thanks for moving the agenda items for me so I could do both the graduation.
Well, thanks for making it. I was amazed you're here. You had that, it was a big deal for you.
there's a lot of singing, so I didn't know if I'd ever get here, but we're here. They like to sing there.
I see Counselor or Alan, the Chief of Staff, you were waving your hand.
There he is.
Just saying good
It's
night.
Tim.
Oh, he's saying-
Good night, good night.
Oh,
Okay,
he's saying
so-
good night.
Good night,
Hi,
everyone.
Tim.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Laura.
Record.